So up until this time, the idea of fashion and buying clothing because it was fashionable really did not exist amongst the ordinary public. This was an idea that was only introduced much later. It was the idea of wearing something that was fashionable or up to date was something that was very common amongst the wealthy upper echelons of society. But the common people didn't think and behave this way. You might find that a little bit amazing that that is the case, but this very much was the case, as we'll see from some of the clips which I'll show you. So Bernays was about to change all of that, you know, what was the status quo at the time. He was to introduce the idea that your choice of clothing had a great deal to do with expressing yourself as an individual and becoming an interesting person. When you look at these next clips, you'll probably be moved, as I was, by how far society has shifted over a relatively short period of time. Many of the ideas and values that we have connected to ourselves and what we value have been actually manufactured by others and forced upon society through psychological manipulation. It was not really that we were unwilling to buy into these ideas, but as Bernays points out, or as he puts it rather, it was definitely achievable through the engineering of consent.
There's a psychology of dress. Have you ever thought about it? How it can express your character? You all have interesting characters, but some of them are all hidden. I wonder why you all want to dress always the same, with the same hats and the same coats. I'm sure all of you are interesting and have wonderful things about you, but looking at you in the street, you all look so much the same. And that's why I'm talking to you about the psychology of dress. Try and express yourselves better in your dress. Bring out certain things that you think are hidden. I wonder if you've thought of this angle of your personality.
I'd like to ask you some questions. Why do you like short skirts?
Oh, because there's more to see.
More to see, eh? What good does that do you?
Makes you more handsome. It makes you more attractive.
It does?
In 1927, an American journalist wrote, "A change has come over our democracy. It is called consumptionism. The American citizen's first importance to his country is now no longer that of citizen, but that of consumer."
When we look back at these clips, many people will be perhaps feeling that, you know, I don't think we're so naive now. It is a fact that society has become in some ways more sophisticated. We've been exposed over time to such an array of techniques and devices to shape public opinion. We think that we can easily spot when it's happening and perhaps avoid it. But that's really not the case. What's happening is that the manipulators of society, the people that are creating desire, that are creating so-called need for products, have become increasingly more sophisticated, and we are very much unaware of the reality that we are being constantly exposed to and manipulated by so many ideas and values. So in 1927, an American journalist wrote, "A change has come over our democracy. It is called consumptionism. The American citizen's first importance to his country is now no longer that of citizen, but that of consumer. So a big leap forward, and we see that now this has become the norm. So this is just one example of something that was introduced, a manufactured idea that was used to psychologically manipulate people. And now it has become embodied within society as a norm and a must-do. People are so affected by ideas of being fashionable, being up-to-date, and it's an idea that we'll explore a little bit later on in one of the other videos. But we're about to see the beginning of the crossover of public relations and psychological manipulation from being used as a tool to market products into politics. If Bernays could get people to like a product, then why couldn't he also get people to like a politician?
Hello?
Bernays soon became famous as the man who understood the mind of the crowd. And in 1924, the president contacted him. President Coolidge was a quiet, taciturn man and had become a national joke. The press portrayed him as a dull, humorless figure. Bernays' solution was to do exactly the same as he had done with products. He persuaded 34 famous film stars to visit the White House. And for the first time, politics became involved with public relations.
And I lined up these 34 people, and I'd say, "What's your name?" He'd say, "Al Jolson." I'd say, "Mr. President, Al Jolson." Next day, every newspaper in the United States had a front page story: President Coolidge entertains actors at White House. And the Times had a headline which said, "President nearly laughed." And everybody was happy.
So the use of the tool of psychological manipulation of the masses was slowly being perceived by some as being the future of politics. This very cozying up of the leading public relation figures with important political figures and the usefulness of this relationship can clearly be seen by an event in 1928.
And then, in 1928, a president came to power who agreed with Bernays. President Hoover was the first politician to articulate the idea that consumerism had become the central motor of American life. After his election, he told a group of advertisers and public relations men, "You have taken over the job of creating desire and have transformed people into constantly moving happiness machines. Machines which have become the key to economic progress." What was beginning to emerge in the 1920s was a new idea of how to run mass democracy. At its heart was the consuming self, which not only made the economy work, but was happy and docile, and so created a stable society.
This rather convenient marriage of public relations, which is fundamentally psychological manipulation of the masses to get people to embrace a certain idea or ideal as being desirable or something that they could support by engineering their consent, was now to grow and become increasingly more used within politics. We will be discussing a little bit about how the use of the focus group came into vogue and how it was used to help PR people or psychologists understand what was going to move people and what they needed to do to manipulate consent, to get people to consent or agree to purchase a product. And that these same techniques were going to develop and become increasingly more sophisticated, and then to become used in politics. And it has come to the point today where actual platforms of social economic and social policy are not as seemingly important as having your finger on the pulse of the public to see what's driving them and what are the buzzwords and ideas that can be presented in rather brief ways that move people emotionally to take a side and to consider something as desirable, to buy into that, and then hopefully to go out and vote for whoever's making the promise or selling the message. So this has become a rather, I think, undesirable product of this whole era of the development of public relations, because it relies more upon manipulation and emotional enticement, if I can put it that way, rather than dealing with hard, cold facts, philosophical and political ideas. This, of course, does not bode well for society.